I have Andre Japamesa. He's the distinguished member of parliament for Second D. He's also a legal practitioner, by the way. Thank you, brother. What's in name?
Adumaragwa. Good morning.
Yeah,
good morning.
Good morning. The latter part, we'll try and touch base. A World Bank boss had been saying something, so we just want to make sure we clarify whether we're having an imminent crisis in the energy sector. And he's a deputy minister for energy, so it's also on point that he's here. Once again, thank you. Aduji Tamaklo is a regular on the show. I think that in the last 1 month, they've sparred against each other, so it's good. It's just a casual look at the issues. But the MPP presidential primaries have been very hot. And apparently, key leading figures, and based on what we're analyzing, based on the messaging, last week we saw the formal, if not outdooring or inauguration of the campaign of engineer Kwabene J. Agyapong, and I thought his message to the delegate was on point. And then over the weekend, we've had some rapturous welcome to a number of individuals as well. Key among them, DMB, It Is Possible 2024, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, also there in the mix, one of the leading individuals for that flag bearership race. Alan Tremantin also has been around. I'm told that today he'll be in the Volta region. And then Bonti Benjamin is wishing him well, of course. And then Ken Agyapong, he's been on fire. He's been on fire, throwing jabs at the vice president, issues about statistics, etc. I know that Dennis Miracle Abuaji said that he didn't mention a specific name, but we know who manages the economy, Ghana City, etc. But we just want to look at a mix of the issues. You know, Dr. Bawumia seemed to be the main man everybody's targeting. Is it because he's the leading person? Is it also because, as head of government's economic management team, he hasn't managed the economy so well, and so now his head is on the line? We'll pick up some insight from the campaign trail, and Ken Agyapong has been speaking.
We are strategists. Strategists, any baby, it is only Ghana and I would the economy call IMF also a strategist.
They go about claiming to be strategists. Ghana is the only place that those who take the country to IMF claim to be strategists.
Not dollar 4 cities, and that dollar 12 cities. We are strategists. Excuse me, I'm a car. Doors are the
I used to owe a Turkish for some doors he delivered to me. When I was depositing his cash, a dollar was equal to 6 cedis. In August 2022, when he was coming for $100,000, I paid 1,550,000 cedis, meaning the dollar was equal to 15 cedis, 50 pesos.
Where were the strategists? If English you go chop, your pocket is empty. If English you go chop. The message, you know, a daisy woman.
Vice President wouldn't go directly at the lawmaker for Asin Central, his supporters. For instance, the Member of Parliament for Efijasi Asukore, who is also a leader of the MP caucus for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, believe that maybe Kennedy Ohene Agyapong missed his targets.
He shared his experiences when he used to claim to go to school to pay his fees, drive taxi, cab. So any person, if he can be a president one day, any person's child, regardless of where you are in this country, there's opportunity for you to be where you have to be. Yes, and he's coming to give the hope for everyone.
Well, some believe that it's a submarine jab at Kennedy Agyapong, who has been saying that the man claimed to be a strategist, but look at where the city is now.
That then I would say he should direct it to the Minister of Finance. Yes, and when he's in charge, he will take charge and we'll go to the promised land. He's taking us there. DMB is doing that. He's taking us to the promised land. He will do that.
So you think Agyapong is not,
I don't know. He should attack the finance minister. No, not him.
Bawumia is the only vice president in Ghana that we continue to hear his name in governance. Because look at so many vice presidents that we have had in Ghana here. When did you hear that they are criticizing or attacking vice president?
And so we're on. Mesa.
Yes.
You told me you supported DMB.
Absolutely.
2024. It is possible.
Without a doubt.
And now, Charlie, Ken Agyapong says that he has woefully mismanaged not only the economy, but the key indicators. We're talking about if you look at what the exchange rate is, that he's supposed to be a strategist, and then it's not strategizing.
You can infer that even though he did not mention the name of His Excellency the Vice President, that because he is the one who is the chairman of the economic management team and is contesting the primaries, those comments were directed at him. But before the show started, you recall I was telling Johnny that the opinion, right? They're like the stars. Each one has his own. And so to that extent, I will not, pay too much heed to the comments that came from a very good friend and senior Santa Clausian, my former chairman of the communications.
There are no mean comments. They were just not taken out of the blue.
I'll deal with it. So if you allow me, okay, I said I will not pay too much heed. That is not to say I'm not going to respond, okay, because the vice president has been the chairman of the economic management team, superintending a committee made up of members, which includes the finance minister, the minister for trade and industry, the energy minister, the minister for public enterprises, the minister for agric, and several others, okay? And they then, when matters that board on the economic, Bank of Ghana governor and deputy governor and all that, they deliberate on matters, to make some recommendations to cabinet for adoption. And so we're not going to run away from the fact that the vice president is an integral part of the management of our economy. But he's been in that role for 7 years, between 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21 till now. And so if you are measuring him, okay, you need to start from 2017, 18, 19, 20, and then to date.
You think that's what the delegates will look at?
Absolutely, without a doubt. Of course, because people are not that
short-sighted.
Of course, they would evaluate the issues. And Vice President presided over an economy that was growing 7% average between 2017, 18, 19. And so 2020, what happened? It's important. Those who may want to pretend to be ostriches and discount whatever it is that impacted this entire world in 2020 is their cup of tea. But the greater majority of the Ghanaian people and the New Patriotic Party.
Have you heard him on the campaign trail that the excuse about Russia and COVID are no excuses?
Says who?
Agyapong.
But I said that he can have his own opinion. I dealt with that matter before I even started. But I'm saying to you that the greater majority of the Ghanaian people and the delegates who are going to elect who leads our party into 2024 will look at the entire gamut, okay, and recognize that 2020-21 were clearly outliers. And what caused those years to be outliers is of significance to the decision making. Okay? And where are we now? Because clearly, the West is behind us. And this economy has begun to stabilize. Things are beginning to pick up. And I'm extremely positive that by the end of this year into next year, yes, we've gone into an IMF program, and legitimately so. Why not? Because we had an issue that we needed to deal with. We tried to roll out some domestic policy that failed. I say that. And the blame should go to DMV according to Kennedy Agyapong. I say put it in context. He can have his view. I'm not here to speak about necessarily what Kennedy Agyapong has said. I'm saying that I'm speaking to my delegates that situate everything in context. Okay? Post-COVID, post-Russia, before Russia-Ukraine, we knew we had an issue. Government took a decision that, look, IMF will know the prescription that they will give us. Let's try and raise revenue internally and cut down on domestic expenditure. Revenue measures that were rolled out, put before Parliament, was rejected. That had consequences because the law requires that you pass your budget, your appropriations, and your revenue measures by a certain date.
But there were reasons for the rejection.
I don't have a problem. I'm saying that the consequence of that is real. Okay? You cannot wish them away. And so if by 31st December you have breached the very law, the Public Financial Management Act that then governs your public finances, people will lose confidence in your economy. Why? Is this rocket science? Investors will begin to pull out.
And the vice president didn't know that?
Was the vice president who failed to pass the bill in parliament? Was he the one?
Was it not in an advisory position?
So he was advising parliament. Vice president was advising parliament.
It's not only parliament who raised issues against that.
But I'm telling you that it was parliament that breached the law. And this is not the first time I'm making this point. Okay, because the law is clear. Section 11, I believe, of the Public Financial Management Act is clear that these actions ought to be taken by a certain date. If you fail to do it, there would be consequences. Your investor community will start pulling out because there's no revenue assurance for the kinds of investment that they're making in your economy. Those are real issues.
And Ken Agyapong says that the vice president, if you go at the time, even was being advised.
I know you are very and I know you went to church yesterday.
I did. Because was being advised. He never took any of the advice.
You tweeted in church yesterday. So I'm pleading with you. Let the spirit that you imbibed yesterday guide your actions today. At least in a little.
I'm being guided by the spirit.
So let me make my point. I'm saying that my delegates, the delegates of the New Patriotic Party and the greater majority of the people of this country, recognize the issues that have taken us to where we are. That cannot be attributable to Bawumia. That is not to say that he is reneging on his role as chairman of the economic management team and post the issues. What has happened? So we'll get there. I mean,
you think so?
Of course. Without
because
a doubt.
He's directly hitting hard at the vice president.
It's an election.
So, for example, Yabua Ransford on our stream says, what Ken is saying is the truth, but this man is defending the undefendable.
Why?
Lawyer Mesa.
Oh, what has Ken said that is the truth? We are in a challenged economy. Why? It's not factual. We've gone to the IMF. It's not factual.
So you consider the vice president?
But we've gone to the IMF. And I'm saying, that's why I'm telling you that that cannot be attributable to the vice president because you ought to situate it within the context. Vice president is not the one who brought COVID about. And if you think that COVID has no impact on our economy, it's your cup of tea. Vice president is not the one who breached the law in parliament. If you think that those did not have consequences on the outcome of what it is that our economy will perform, that's your beef. The vice president is not the one. And you see, people are quick to say, everything you blame it on COVID and Russia, Ukraine.
These are not people. This Ken Agyapong also
I don't have
inclusive.
a problem. Roland, I will not be tempted for you to take me where you want to take me to.
I'm not taking you anywhere.
I'm saying to you that I won't be tempted. I'm just focusing on the issue and dealing with it. We are in a challenged economy, no doubt. Because but for that, why would the president have taken the decision to go to the IMF? We had issues. But what caused those issues, I'm saying, is relevant for anybody who is doing a dispassionate critique of managers of the economy will take into consideration. And I'm assured that based on the interactions that has gone on so far, the ones that have participated indirectly, the ones that have been monitoring on all media platforms, His Excellency the Vice President's message is syncing with the delegates of the New Patriotic Party, and they will give him an overwhelming emphasis, overwhelming endorsement on two occasions, on the 26th of August and also on the 4th of November 2023. Because we are clear in our minds that election 2024...
You're one of the supporters of DMB.
100%. In fact, if there is a greater percentage, that's where I am. Okay? Because I'm clear in my mind that he has what it takes to lead our party. That is not to say that the rest are incompetent. All of them have what it takes. They've all worked for the party. They've contributed their due. But I'm clear in my mind that amongst all of them, His Excellency the Vice President stands tall, and he is the one who can take this party to election 2024 to help us break the 8 and keep our friends who track record we all know nowhere close to government.
From what Lawyer Agyapong Mesa is saying, the Vice President is so good, Ken Agyapong has no option than to take jabs at the Vice President, calling strategists who has failed, etc. the CD has gone up extremely against the US dollar, and he finds it very much outstanding that he will make that statement. Ken Agyapong, who seemed to be also leading the race now, coming into the race, if not. What do you make of all these observing from the side? Layaduji.
Yes, so good morning and good morning to your cherished viewers. Ordinarily, an internal MPP conversation should remain with them. But the matters raised by Ken Agyapong are matters that go to the roots of how this incompetent, wicked, and reckless administration has managed the resources of this country.
How do you mean?
So Ken Agyapong is essentially saying that the so-called chair of the economic mismanagement team, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who had to basically lie about his upbringing in order to posture a certain image about himself. Well, we all know Bawumia's father, one-time CEO of Cocoa Board, renowned lawyer in the northern region. Suddenly, we are being told that whilst he was growing, he was weeding in people's farm and backyard.
What has that got to do with the current campaign?
What I'm trying to let you know is that the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, is buying a certain image for himself that does not exist. And the only reason why he's having to do that is that he's no longer proud of the economy. Whilst in opposition, the NPP marketed and postured Bawumia as the poster boy on the economy. And you recall the various public lectures, the distinguished lecture series that today Central University gave him the platform to do. In one of the lectures, this is the words Bawumia used. It's a quote, "When in doubt, observe the exchange rate," unquote. When in doubt, observe the exchange rate, unquote. Now you see, when you posture in this manner in opposition, that at the end of the day, the primus inter pares is the exchange rate, then your opponent has every right to hold you accountable. What are the numbers today? Out of 54 countries in the whole of Africa, if you take 54 countries in Africa, Ghana has the third highest inflation. The only two countries that we've been able to beat in the race is Sudan and Zimbabwe. We are doing over 42%. Never happened. So Bawumia's record as the chair of the economic management team is inflation that moved as far as 54% to now 42%. That's record. In fact, as we speak, Liberia, even after Ebola, has an inflation of 8.3%. Liberia, after Ebola, has inflation of 8.3%.
Liberia has Ebola again.
Please.
I just want to know,
Ivory
just out of curiosity.
Our neighbor has inflation of 5.2%. Ghana, we are doing 42%.
What's your point?
The point I am making is that if you pick the record of Dr. Bawumia, it is a shame. It is shambolic. Hold on, I'm
Proud
coming
to
there.
2019, everything was fine. Until
You
2020, we had COVID.
You see. Sometimes I don't know whether it is forgetfulness or amnesia. See, in 2019, we all agree on this table that as of 2019, there was no COVID. Correct. As of 2019, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, as the chair of the economic mismanagement team and the finance ministry, has set up a committee to stop the depreciation of the city. Correct. Of which my good friend, Franklin Kujo, was a member. Correct. Was there COVID in 2019? These guys, is the level of dishonesty. They have no respect for you and I.
What has that got to do with the argument?
The argument I'm making is that even as of 2019, the economy was already down. To the point that you have to now go and set up a committee to stop the depreciation of the cedi. Was there COVID in 2019? Look, let me also show you. The IMF, in 2019, when we're exiting the IMF program, you know what they did? They did what we call the Article 2 review of Ghana. The Article 2 review by the IMF. Now, if you go through the Article 2 review report on Ghana as of 2019, the IMF has already shown that we were moving on to the point of debt unsustainability. So, where from this hell of a lie about COVID-19, you had already destroyed the economy. And I'll demonstrate to you briefly why it cannot be COVID. See, in 2017, in terms of the revenue, let's look at the numbers. In 2017, there was no COVID. You made a revenue of 33 billion Ghana cedis. In 2018, no COVID. You made a revenue of 39 billion. 2019, no COVID. You made a revenue of 45.6 billion Ghana cedis. Now catch something. 2020, there was COVID, correct. Even in COVID year, you made a revenue of 47 billion. So you even made more revenue in the year of COVID than 2019.
And you're saying it should have impacted positively on the economy?
If you are saying that COVID is the problem, then you should be showing a corresponding reduction in total revenue as of 2020.
Well, the excuse that there were supply chain disruptions.
No, even with those supply chain disruptions, you still made a revenue of 47, more than the previous year revenue. So even in the midst of COVID, you were making more revenue than the previous year. I mean, if you want to show by way of impact, at least let us know that even on your revenue side, this was the nature of the impact on your revenue side, correct? How much did COVID cost you in terms of total revenue? As you sit here, can you tell us? So the point ought to be made clear. And if you listen to Agyapong, and that is where I want to situate the conversation. Look, the problem this economy went through or is going through was the unbridled borrowing supervised by this axis of wickedness, Bawumia, Ken Ofori-Atta, and Akufo-Addo, to enrich themselves and no other. See, in 2017, this administration went for Franklin Templeton bond of 2.25 billion. You remember? Against all the protests. It didn't end there. The next year, they now went to the Eurobond market proper. Did another 2 billion. By 2021, the Eurobond market alone, they had borrowed $11 billion. How is this COVID-19 problem? When you borrow, you have to pay. Now, if you have a situation where consistently your interest rate and amortization as a component of your budget allocation increased by almost 10 billion Ghana cedis annually, how are you going to sustain that economy?
Well, why don't you?
How is that?
Why don't you blame?
Hold on.
Ken then?
Please. No.
Ken Ofori-Atta.
Bawumia is the chair. No budget is approved without the approval of the economic management team. 2, Dr. Bawumia had not demonstrated whether by way of cabinet memo or public commentary, opposition to any government policy or program. By inference, these are programs directly coming from him. Now, if you have a situation where you are doing $11 billion borrowing from Eurobond within the space of 5 years, and let me put it in context. In the whole of 8 years of Mills Mahama Emisata, total Eurobond receipt was 3.5 billion. In 8 years. In the space of 6 years, these guys have done 11 billion. In fact, the only reason why they didn't do massive Eurobond borrowing in 2022 was because of the downgrade in February 2022. Even that one, now look at what they have done. Even when they realized that they will not get the Eurobond money, Bank of Ghana stepped in and started giving them advances. And for 2022, Bank of Ghana advances alone amounted in excess of 3.5 billion. What does that mean? It means that they were using Bank of Ghana as substitute for their Eurobond receipts. These guys are evil. They have destroyed people's livelihood. And listen to Ken Agyapong. Ken makes the point that regrettably, even him as a businessman, he can appreciate the loss. And strangely, the one who is the poster boy of this economy is telling us that he has his own vision. Excuse me, you have what vision? A vision that has impacted negatively on the people of Ghana today. And like I said last week, if you're a Muslim and you are having to do Hajj to Mecca as part of the 5 pillars of Islam, you are having to pay 75,000 Ghana cedis. You were doing 11,000 Ghana cedis in 2016. Do you know why? The depreciation of the cedi.
Because of the forex losses.
The forex losses. Whose responsibility?
And is that what Ken is talking about?
Yes. And like Bawumia said, he said, when in doubt, observe what? The exchange rate. So today, you are having to spend 75,000 Ghana cedis in order. I will wrap up. In order to go there. But you know what? COVID. But they don't tell us that COVID gave you unprecedented financial resources in one fiscal year. Almost 31 billion Ghana cedis. Today, the Auditor General, appointed by Mr. Akufo-Addo himself, not Domelevo, who he unconstitutionally removed. Do you know what the Auditor General is saying?
In the special audit report?
Yes. And also let the records say that even when the NDC minority in Parliament provided a private member motion for the special audit, our friends, including Agyapong, resisted it. Let the records show. Do you know that it has to take the IMF as part of the conditionalities for a staff-level agreement to now hurriedly put an audit report together? The audit demonstrated that 500 million Ghana cedis of taxpayers' money were spent without going through the public, the gift system. Corruption, deliberate, using, in fact, they were sharing the COVID money like granates.
Oh, but that's just a literal way of describing it.
No! Do you know, the MPP, Northern Regional Vice Chair, a parliamentary aspirant like Agyapong, for the 2020 election, had made the whole world know that COVID monies were shared to MPP parliamentary aspirants, including constituency executive. And she, Felicia, had in excess of 100,000 Ghana cedis and was setting the record straight.
Well,
Agyapong, how in God's name would you do this to the economy of Ghana? And when Ken Agyapong says this, instead of demonstrating humility, accepting it in good faith. What is Bawumia's campaign message? It is possible. If you ask him, what different thing are you going to do that Akufo-Addo has not done? He said, it is possible. When you ask him, how different will you be? He said, I have my own vision.
No point made.
So the point ought to be made clear.
All right.
That we just elected unto ourselves a burden. Instead of they coming to solve Ghana's problem, they have become the problem we are trying to solve. Before Akufo-Addo became president, and I'll conclude on this, before he became president, we knew his finances. You
knew his finances?
Yes,
what do you mean
to
by
the point that he had to even sell his father's hotel that was bequeathed to him.
How did you come by that conclusion?
No, I mean it's public record. Societe Generale. That was the father's hotel. He had to sell it to even run his campaign.
So he cannot sell a property of his own.
No, the point
his own assets. What has that got to do with his campaign?
No, the point I want to make is that was the nature of his finances.
I'm asking you because you're calling for decent politicking.
No, so this is so decent because that was the state.
How can this be decent?
No, the man was insolvent. But today he is rich and Ghana is insolvent.
Now, Mr. Mensah,
that is the terrible state of affairs.
At the end of the day, this is an internal election. How do you call a truce on this? Perhaps something might have triggered Ken Agyapong to be saying these things, and then throwing these jobs at the vice president, who is the head of government's economic management team.
Well, it's not for me to say, but you see, let's be candid with the facts, okay? At least President Akufo-Addo, assuming without admitting, because I don't know for a fact, as to whether he sold his father's hotel. That was his personal property that he sold. The former president that you so much worship, on the 29th of December 2016, after he had lost the election massively, what did he do? He assigned the total bauxite deposit of this country in 3 leases to his brother. You know the value of that bauxite reserve that Mr. Mahama gave to his brother on the 26th of December 2016? Was valued in excess of 500 billion. He bequeathed it.
You mean you're talking about the Stone cubic man?
Oh, you know.
It's a public.
Yeah, these guys have the audacity to speak. These guys. Because, yes, they perceive all of us to have short memory. And so they can come and sit here. I always say, decorous language in our politics, it helps.
But didn't he go through procurement processes?
Please. What procurement process did he go through? The Court of Appeal, the High Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court have all shut it down. What procurement process? What procurement process? Please. I was saying that decorous language in our politics helps. Calling people wicked, evil, and all those kinds of... We can use those kinds of words, but where really does it take us? We can agree to disagree. Okay? Look, I'm never going to sit here and run away from the comments that the vice president made when he was in opposition. Because indeed, if the exchange rate, if your economic fundamentals are weak, you see it in the exchange rate. It was true then, it is true today. Because if it were not the case, we would not have gone to the IMF to seek a program. So that in itself is an admission that we have an issue. My question is, what took us to the IMF in 2013, 2014, and what took us there in 2022 is relevant. We cannot wish those matters away. And look, if we have time to speak on the next subject and the document that I gave you, you've talked of borrowing. Every single debt that this government contracted was approved by Parliament. Every single debt. And the purpose for which those debts were contracted were equally approved. When you are in government and you are accused of reckless borrowing, you said that they were assets. Why? Mr. Mahama asks that Parliament approves every loan that he contracts. And so if you think that he is mismanaged or misappropriated any money, go to Parliament and go and demonstrate whether all the loans are...
Mr. Mahama is not contesting the MPP presidential candidate.
Oh, but of course, the matters that he spoke about, was it in reference to the MPP parliamentary primaries?
So reference to what Ken said, in reference to management of the economy.
Oh, please. He said that ordinarily in an internal MPP matter, he was not going to speak to it. But these are matters that borders on the wicked whatever. Was it MPP parliamentary primaries that he was speaking to? Let's not do this. Okay? No, nobody here doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay? Look, we have issues. There's no doubt. But I can only say that where I sit, this government is doing extremely well to bring the economy back on track. You talk of borrowing Franklin Templeton, Eurobond, and all those kinds of things. Why
what did you say the government is doing?
It's doing whatever it takes to bring it back on track.
Ken doesn't know that. Ken Agyapong doesn't know.
I'm not speaking to Ken. I'm not speaking for Ken.
Because Ken is speaking to the facts. Is he not?
He's speaking to facts relative to what? That there are issues with the economy. And so someone should be blamed for it.
That the one who is the head of the economic management team,
it doesn't matter. I'm saying
co-contestant in the MPP flag bearership should not be given the nod.
That is his opinion. I'm saying to you that as far as I'm concerned, any assessment of the performance of any individual ought to be situated within this proper context. And you need to look at the entire trend of how long the person has been there and managing the economy so that you can make a proper assessment of the performance or otherwise of the individual. I'm saying that so far as I know, the vice president has done extremely well exogenous matters have impacted our economy that has led to issues that are being resolved.
Kenny Agyapong doesn't know that.
It's up to him. I don't have a problem at all, but I have a view as well, and that's my view. How is that difficult for you to accept? How is that a difficulty?
You mean for Ken to accept?
Look, you see, it beggars belief how and why, when we are doing an assessment or analysis of the economy, all right, we discount everything else that has happened. Roland, when we came into government in 2017, I was in Parliament when we were debating the first budget, where the then minority leader, Haruna Idrusu, asked the question, where is the fiscal space? Because Mr. Mahama told us that we are down to the bone. There was no money. The economy was in dire straits. The IMF conditions that we assigned them to, we had not met even 18 months after the program had commenced. And so you needed some quick action to salvage a complete collapse. Hence, the Minister of Finance raised those bonds to pay significant cost expenditures that had been incurred. Demonstrable by this document that I hold in my hand.
Which one? The
energy sector.
The power
huge. Look at the surplus that we're paying for in 2015. 909 megawatts. Look at the top. You see the total system peak plus planning reserve margin, 2,281. You had a dependable capacity of 3,190.
How does this answer the question that are being asked by Kennedy Agyapong?
Cost.
You didn't hear the audio.
Chief, the 909 excess capacity that you had, you needed to pay for it. In 2016, the 803 excess capacity that you had, you needed to pay for it. In 2017, the 1,514 excess capacity surplus that you had, you needed to pay for it. In 2018, 1,462. In 2019, 1,333. In 2020, 1,195. 2021, 1,011. 2022, 802. These are actual. It comes at a cost. This is not electricity that ECG has distributed. This is electricity that we didn't need. But because of the contractual arrangement that we found ourselves in, you needed to pay for it. In fact, only 3 items, right? Energy sector payments, the banking sector cleanup, the mess that the MPP government inherited, because when they did the asset quality test in 2013-14, we all knew that these banks were at risk. What was your solution? You gave people liquidity support that they chopped like there was no tomorrow.
No, that's
you
why
think we've forgotten.
That's why Kenny Agyapong says that the vice president.
Can you allow me to make my point?
But it has to be in tandem with.
Can you allow me? So I'm saying to you that by the time we came into government, there were historical issues that we needed to deal with, and as a responsible government,
you think Ken doesn't know that?
I'll leave it to the judgment of the viewers.
Please play the insert of Kennedy Agyapong again. All right.
You see?
No, wait.
Oh, no.
Because if you're not going to allow me to make my point, then I don't see why you have to
Kennedy Agyapong makes specific references.
I have told you 1,000 times that
and then you go on 2017.
Because can you allow me to make the point?
Please make your point.
Kennedy Agyapong is entitled to his view. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that the discerning Ghanaians who are listening to us appreciate where we are coming from. And so if somebody makes a comparison of the inflation rate today in Ghana relative to Ivory Coast and wherever, the fundamental issues that you had before COVID hit, energy sector, banking sector issues that cost you huge sums of money that you did not have and for which you had to borrow to deal with. Ivory Coast didn't have the kind of issue that Ghana had. And so the impact of COVID on Ivory Coast will be different from that of Ghana. It's as simple as that. And so I expect that anybody who is making a dispassionate analysis will take all of this into consideration before they make an assessment of the performance or otherwise of another person. I'm saying that having regard to all the facts as I know them, His Excellency the Vice President had done extremely well. Our delegates have hope and confidence in him. The good people of this country, the discerning good people of this country have hope and confidence in him that if anybody can turn this economy around, it can only be the government led by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia of the New Patriotic Party going into election 2024. And that's exactly what we're going to articulate and advocate for the good people of this country to buy into.
You see.
And what Ken says, it looks like Mr. Mensah, because he disagrees with Ken's, doesn't seem to connect what the realities are Ken is painting. Regards to the management of the economy and who should be responsible. And directly, because the vice president is head of the economic management.
In my short rebuttal,
he says he should take the blame.
And I monitored you. You gave him 10 minutes to rebut.
I didn't give him 10 minutes.
I was monitoring.
I gave him 7 minutes. 7 minutes. Please go ahead.
Okay, very well. But because you were interjecting, maybe it's 10. You see, my senior here makes the point that, John Mahama bequeathed Ghana's bauxite and you put a price tag on it to his brother Ibrahim Mahama. That's why he made the point. So it's fair we deal with the issues as they are. First of all, if John Mahama intended to give Ghana's bauxite deposit to his brother, listen carefully, he wouldn't wait until 2016. Esther Kubik took 3 years of due diligence to go through the processes. And you know the painful part? The only reason why the Supreme Court invalidated it was lack of parliamentary approval. And I get it. Who had parliamentary majority in 2016? Was it not the NDC? So if John Mahama intended that his brother should own, he would have whipped.
So this notorious fact, you dispute it.
He would have whipped NDC MPs in line. You don't know who the person John Mahama is. Esther Kubik went through due process. In fact, the only thing that was lacking, and that's what the court said, was the lack of parliamentary approval. As we speak today, the government of Akufo-Addo are dealing with mining companies without parliamentary approval. Suhini has been in the Supreme Court for God knows how many years, with the list of mining leases signed by the Akufo-Addo administration without parliamentary approval, and they are working. Possibly you do not know. But you see, look, I have with me the FTI consulting reports. And when you mention FTI, he knows better. The FTI consulting report on the Agyapong deal. I want to read something. On Tuesday, February 19, 2019, a high-level meeting at the Jubilee House considered the structure of the demand guarantees for the lease payment security and BSA payment security proposed by PDS in place of a bank guarantee or letter of credit. The meeting built on earlier meetings of MIDA that accepted the structure in principle. Now get this. The meeting at the Jubilee House was chaired by His Excellency the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Others at the meeting include Chief of Staff, the Finance Minister, 2 Deputy Finance Ministers, and Energy Minister, among others. Now listen. At the end of the discussion, MIDA was instructed by this meeting chaired by Bawumia to authorize PDS to secure or issue the guarantee that had been found to be fraudulent. Ejapa, Ghana's ECG, one of our prized assets, because you see, with ECG, you are just
what
buying...
has that got to do with what Ken is raising?
Please. You were here when he brought in Esther Kubik. Allow me.
But what has that got to do with Ken?
Ejapa, has always been part of the PDS conversation, and he can't run away from it. Because he was a known officer of the lead arranger and promoter of the PDS. They were the ones who issued the fraudulent guarantee to take Ghana's prize asset like ECG. What are you talking about, Ejapa? You have the courage to even talk about these issues? Excuse me.
You're saying that because he brought Esther Kubik?
Yes. And you see, this is not like going to mine bauxite. ECG is already made, cooked. we speak today, do you know that Agyapong and his friends are still in London trying to take our ECG? Yes.
Why do you make that allegation?
Yes. Oh, no, they are on an international arbitration. They have not stopped. Listen, let the point be made clear.
Please, let's come back to the issues.
My senior here talks about payment to ECG, payment for power and others, and provide this document as proof. What is in this document? Nothing useful. Because, you see, as we speak, as early as 2019, the Ghana Energy Sector Recovery Program had already found that you took a political decision in 2018 not to increase tariffs, but to reduce.
We'll come back to the energy issues.
And but he brought it up quickly. By reason of this, money that you are supposed to accumulate and pay ECG, you didn't get it. And so, the debt had been accumulating. These are the real issues.
Back on Ken. We'll speak on ECG very soon.
But you see...
Because there's a substantive question that will be asked on ECG.
Because in this conversation is the issue of foreign differential losses. What Ken Agyapong alluded to. That you as the chair of the economic management team, your primary responsibility is to stabilize three things: food prices, inflation.
Your 7 minutes.
And more importantly, the exchange rate. All these three indicators are on the low. So if the record today, as shown by Ken Agyapong himself, is that you are dealing with inflation at 42%. Exchange rate, $1, 12 cedis. You took it from $1, 4 cedis. That is your record. Speak to that. Let the people of Ghana appreciate that by reason of our incompetence, we have destroyed the Ghanaian economy. What is wrong with this admission? Today, our mothers are preparing for December purchases, and they are having to do their purchases at $1 to 12 Ghana cedis. They want to hear a message of hope. They don't want
and
to
you think
hear,
that's what Candace is espousing?
Listen, and they don't want to hear a message of ranting. They want to hear a message of hope. A hope that our people, the wickedness that have been inflicted upon them by this incompetent, wicked, corrupt administration will be a different conversation. But if you come in the midst of all this and you want to dodge the conversation, we will hold you to the fire of accountability. And we are not here to please anybody. And let the record be set straight. The economy of Ghana is at its worst stage ever since 1992. But you see, Roland, what is painful in all this conversation is that this is the most resource government. They have gotten more money than any administration since 1992. Tax revenue alone in excess of 300 billion Ghana cedis. Do you know that in the whole of 8 years, the total envelope of financial resources available to the NDC administration was 248 billion Ghana cedis in 8 years, including taxes, loans, and grants. You, only tax revenue, 298 billion Ghana cedis. Look, if you have any shame left, what you do is you bow down your head in shame. You don't come here and try to confuse. And that is why and listen to this carefully. Ken Agyapong is not talking to NDC members. Ken Agyapong is not talking to CPP members. He's talking to the delegates of NPP. He's telling them, you delegates, how wise can you be when the person who took this economy to the IMF, at the point where ministers of state were saying, we will not go to IMF, we will not allow small boys from IMF to come and tell us, today, Akufo-Addo, next year he will be 80 years. He's before IMF small boys. Telling him that you can't manage yourself, so we'll tell you how to manage. Did he have to take the IMF for Akufo-Addo to know that he needed zero financing from the Bank of Ghana? So where is your wisdom? The wisdom you claim that you are ruling this country with. The point ought to be made clear that we will not allow the MPP to run away with their deception. And that is why the call by Ken Agyapong, and I've heard Kwabena Agyapong repeat the same chorus on his campaign launch, where he makes the point that, listen, you cannot be preaching Ghana beyond aid and have a big bowl in hand before the IMF. That is duplicity. And he said, look, the people who took us to go and lie prostrate before the IMF cannot now suddenly turn around like Paul on his way or Saul on his way to Damascus and start calling yourself Paul. No.
Point made. Point made.
Paul Bawumia is Saul, and you forever remain Saul because he is the one that had destroyed the economy. And he can't run away from it.
Concluding on this subject.
Assuming that that's a legitimate and valid argument, why is he supporting Mr. Mahama to become president again? Because he took us to the IMF. Why?
Please.
No, so
please.
No, but you see, he was the last. No. You see, you are the first person
he's
to
concluding.
talk.
I have the right to do that, please.
You see,
That's unfair. Permit.
you see, the ECG argument, I'm sure we'll go there.
Yes, because when you wrap up in 2 minutes, we'll go there.
In 2 minutes
I fail
again.
to see how anybody
Wrap
can,
up on the Ken issue for 2 minutes.
Yeah,
and then we'll go
I fail to see how anybody can associate surplus capacity, that's generation, that comes at a cost.
But that's
to you.
for the next issue.
No, I'm
Wrap
coming.
up on the
Okay,
Ken
no
issue.
problem.
On the Ken issue.
See, and these guys here,
No, they didn't say the thing. Ken Agyapong said the
I'm
thing.
coming. You mentioned my name specifically in a particular transaction. Now deal with it. Okay?
In 2 minutes.
Yes, I'll deal with it. You see, this PDS matter, they can speak to it all they want. In 2014, when I incorporated TG Energy Solutions, I wasn't a member of parliament. That company then went into an arrangement or some consortium with some private sector people. And in truth, you and I have had this conversation. And you know, the person that I acted for in incorporating TG Energy Solutions, he asked me to be director, and I did. I wasn't a shareholder. I've never been a shareholder. And whatever transaction that they did, I wasn't party to. I'm not shy. But see, PDS or TG Energy Solutions committed no crime. None. That's why when the issues came to head at the time that I'd gone to Parliament in 2016, I said that I'm going to still remain as director. In fact, it was only in 2020 or 21 that I resigned. And no income, nothing. But that's beside the point. This guarantee that he makes reference to, the contract that the government of Ghana signed with PDS gave the minister a right to amend any of the provisions, including the guarantee, in the agreement. So what's the issue? That's what you want to equate to Exton Cubic. It hurts because we have, like I always say, we have relationships, okay? And so sometimes playing politics with some of these things is really not in the best interest of anybody. But when you are tempted to, when people whose track record is well known make these kinds of arguments, you can't help it but to put all these things up. What do you mean?
Now
You see,
No.
You gave him 2 minutes.
No, yeah, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. No rebuttal.
You see,
now,
TG, hold on. I beg you. I
please,
think I need to do this.
Please.
TG Energy Solutions. You are a directing mind.
You've stated that.
No, that makes you a
management. Please. See,
or a owner.
A company has arms, eyes, ears, and the directors are the people who take decision. You just didn't.
I think these are matters of public record. The PDS deal were matters of public record. The FTI consulting report.
Let me also say this. The FTI consulting report.
The Martin Amidu as OSP report are also all there.
Specifically named Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as the one who chaired the meeting that instructed MIDA to go for that guarantee.
Have you seen
hold on.
Have you seen the concession agreement?
That guarantee had been found out.
Have you seen the agreement?
To be fraudulent. And the question of fraud was not raised by an NDC person, but an MP.
Please play the country. Then we'll move on to the next issue.
The issue of fraud, who raised it? Was it me? No.